All right. Welcome, everybody, and good evening.
Bienvenue à vous tous et puis bonne soirée. Bonsoir.
Oh, interpretation hasn't started yet. We're going to give instructions. Then we're going to start interpreting.
Yeah. All right. I think we're all set. Just some troubleshooting with interpretation. Thank you for your patience. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Emerging. This is a three-part series exploring the unique challenges that co-ops are facing in the Northeast and CFNE's emerging responses to some of these challenges. This session is going to be recorded, so we're encouraging you to mute yourselves if you're not speaking and to go off camera if you need to do so. But we're going to have 3 events within this series, one in September, one in October, one in November. And in all 3, we're exploring the unique challenges that co-ops are facing in the Northeast and how CFNE is developing emergent responses or engaging these challenges in different ways. Today in particular, we've gathered members of our lending team and some of our clients who have experienced some of these emerging solutions to discuss and reflect on CFNE's evolving lending practice and the impact they're having on the clients that we're committed to serving. And so before we get further in, I want to take a minute to invite anyone who needs interpretation to enable that service. Today we have French interpreter and Spanish interpreters. So shout out to you guys, Eritier, Erica, the team. We appreciate you being here. Part of our evolving practice includes language access, right? We want to be able to communicate with many more communities and to be able to support them in their communication with us. So if you need it, I want to encourage you to follow the prompts on the screen. If you're on the desktop, you will see interpretation in the menu. Or if you're on your cell phone, you may need to click those 3 dots to access it. Is there anything else to say on the interpretation front? Are we all good?
If you're using a cell phone, there's also 3 dots at the bottom. Just see here, you'll see language interpretation and choose the language that you want, and then make sure to press done. Okay, I can go in Spanish if you want. I'm also going to say briefly what you just said in English, your intro. Okay, buenas noches, bienvenidos. Este evento va a ser trilingüe, va a ser en español, francés y inglés. Gracias por su paciencia. Van a haber 3 partes de esta serie para hablando sobre los retos únicos que están enfrentando las cooperativas en el noreste y el rol que está jugando esta fundación de cooperativas del noreste. ¿Qué está haciendo para responder a estos retos? Y también vamos a estar grabando este evento, así que por favor, si ustedes no van a hablar, pongan el micrófono en silencio. Y si necesitan apagar su cámara, también háganlo. Y entonces la serie de este entrenamiento son 3. Uno va a ser en septiembre, uno va a ser en octubre y otro en noviembre. De nuevo, es para responder sobre los retos que están enfrentando las cooperativas. Van a discutir los prestamistas también, reflexionar sobre el impacto de cómo pueden servir mejor a la comunidad. Y ya. Okay, I'm done with the intro. Now I'm going to explain how to join the
So I would like also to interpret in Lingala and French. Le femmes zini bozoka.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Donc, l'introduction, le but objectif ya session oyo ezali mpona kolakisa quelles sont badifficulté oyo bacoopérative ezali korencontre et puis ekosala basession esamba 3 fois eza na session oyo ya septembre na section ya octobre puis ya le mois oyo eza koya novembre. Et à part ça aussi, bapesi ba instruction pour la interprétation. À partir ya écran, bomona so na so utiliser téléphone to ordinateur, mais so utiliser ordinateur na gauche, eza na place moko bati signe local ya globe terrestre, eza na ni ba compte interprétation bo cliquer wana et puis et proposer nous ba langue quand on parler to interpréter en français na la bo cliquer sur français to French. Me mabino na salle au cabine boyo kangai bamsu boyo kangai te. Ceux qui vont utiliser téléphone, bon mon na photo na droite, ils ont moi baboul moko misato. 3 boules moko bo cliquer wana et me mabino na place au bakomi nino language interpretation donc langue boko interpréter bo cliquer pe na français. Mais de toute façon pendant que toza awa ceux qui vont monelo moko est compliqué bino boko toujours continuer un message to boko komana na message sur yoka. Thank you. You
Entonces, yeah, I'll say that in Spanish. Entonces, ahora lo último que dijo es de que la Fundación de Cooperativas está haciendo lo mejor que pueda para proveer acceso a otros idiomas y poder comunicarse con otras comunidades, y por eso tenemos francés, español e inglés el día de hoy. Entonces, en la parte de abajo, si están usando su computador, va a aparecer un globito que está, ven la flecha que está por ahí. Hagan clic ahí y presionen español y listo. Pero si están utilizando su celular, va a aparecer 3 puntitos, está ahí en el lado derecho de su pantalla, donde dice más o more, y luego va a aparecer esta lista. Presionen interpretación de idioma o language interpretation, luego escojan español y asegúrense de presionar finalizado o done en inglés. Gracias. Just one last reminder for you. The theaters, please not speak too fast. Just be mindful of interpreters. We want to be able to catch up and provide a high quality interpretation. Thank you. I will try to turn my camera on and ask you to slow down. Thank you. Solo quería recordarles que no hablen tan rápido cuando van a presentar. Voy a encender mi pantalla y decirles que hablen despacio. Gracias.
Gracias. Merci. Let's keep rocking. Zoom also has support for folks who would benefit from subtitles. You can enable transcription by clicking on live transcript, or if you're on your cell phone, you can hit those 3 dots and find that option. Today, we're going to cover the basics. We're going to discuss a little bit about our story as people at CFNE and the general story of the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast. We'll discuss a little bit about our emerging services, what we can do to help, and we'll also discuss how you can get started working with us and the lending team. A little bit about the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast. We're a nonprofit community development financial institution that was founded almost 50 years ago to support the work of funding cooperatives, ideally in support of economic, social, and racial justice. We primarily do this through funding co-ops, of course, with flexible, co-op-friendly financial products and services. But we also do business coaching specific to co-ops and facilitate relationship building and connections across the co-op ecosystem. The fund also serves as an investment opportunity for socially concerned investors. So, of course, we serve co-ops, but there's lots of different types, and we serve all of them. A co-op is a member-owned business, and the members may be producers of food, right? These are farmers who are interested in reducing their costs or some other important aspect of their business through a co-op. The members may be workers who are sick of long hours, low pay, and have organized to create a company that is worker-owned. Or the members may be residents in a real estate project who are looking for more affordable housing and realize that shared ownership is affordable and can add a lot of value to their lives. So we work with all types of co-ops, and we partner with different subject matter experts to support these co-ops. And we also support co-ops at all stages of the co-op life cycle. Whether you're underground, as we say, you're dealing with the weight of oppression and you're trying to figure out a solution in your community, or you're emerging as a group who might see co-op as a possibility and you need to learn more, or you're an existing co-op and you want to understand how you can grow and be a healthier organization to serve your members. And we've been seeing increasingly organizations, businesses who'd like to convert to a co-op, right? Maybe you've been running the farm for 50 years and the kids don't want it. Maybe your employees will, so you can have a succession plan. Or perhaps it's simply a desire to have a democratic workplace. So we serve all types of co-ops. And we serve them all throughout the Northeast, from Maine to New York. We have loan officers located in these different states and regions so that folks can have someone in their area that they can call to access co-op funding. Today, as I've mentioned, we've invited a few of our loan officers, members of the lending team. This is all 5 of them, minus the director of lending and our loan administrator. So here's their smiling faces on screen, but you're about to meet them in living color. So I want to give a nice welcome to Rebecca, Joe, and Vikas. And want to thank you guys for being here. Feel free to come off mute, get comfy. We'd like to start off with a brief introduction. I want to invite you guys to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your life at CFNE. What impact are you trying to have? And how's CFNE, how's your work with CFNE supportive of that? Vikas, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Johan. Hi, everybody. I think I'm the newest of the loan officers on this call today. I come to CFNE from a background in worker ownership and housing cooperatives. And I cover Vermont and New Hampshire for the cooperative fund. Yeah, I've been here for about a year and a half. Happy to pass that on to the next person.
Gotcha. And I'll invite up Rebecca to tell a little bit more about your experience. What's life at CFNE like for you? What's going on?
I'm Rebecca Fletcher. I'm here in Western Mass in Northampton, and I'm the loan officer for Western Mass and Western Connecticut. And my background is in affordable housing and alternative ownership structures for land and housing. And I've been with CFNE about 4 years now. And I really care about alternative structures that help to spread the benefits of ownership more broadly and equitably. And so I feel like my work at CFNE really gets to help me tangibly do that with cool projects that are taking flight.
Appreciate that. Joe?
Thank you, Johan. Hi, I'm Joe Marafino. I'm the New York State loan officer for CFNE. Before I was a lender, I was a borrower. So my background was as a worker owner at a bakery cooperative for many years, and then also as a finance manager at a grocery cooperative. And in both of those situations, I borrowed money. In one case, I borrowed from CFNE, and I found it very mysterious as to why they would say yes, why they would say no. I was asking for more money than I had ever seen before, and it was very stressful and confusing. And so my life in CFNE, I really enjoy seeing people and try to create their dreams, try to build their businesses or their homes in ways that feel like they have control. And I want to make the experience of asking for money less mysterious, easier for them.
Excellent. I appreciate that, Joe, because we've got some dream chasers on the line, right? We've got some of the folks we've worked with, and I'd love to spotlight them and bring them into the conversation. We've got Femmes Unies, and we've got Tortilla Semilla. So I'm gonna add a spotlight to these guys so that they can come on screen and introduce themselves a little bit. And there we go. Do we have the Femmes on screen?
Bueno, empiezo, ya le paso a mi compañera Elizabeth. Mi nombre es Anabel Hernández, soy de México, soy inmigrante indocumentada, tengo cuatro hijos. Estamos en el proyecto Tortillería Semilla. Lo comenzamos en agosto 2022, aunque a un año anterior ya se había planeado en el colectivo Semilla, que es nuestro equipo comunitario en New Haven, Connecticut. Y pues
in New
hemos
Haven,
aprendido mucho a
Connecticut,
través de
and we have learned
cosas
so
que
much
no
through
sabíamos.
this time, many
No
things
lo
that we didn't
entendíamos y ahora
know,
pues, ya lo entendemos más.
that we didn't understand, and now we understand that a lot better. Even
Personas
loans
no
were
tenemos
kind of difficult for us to
Ujú.
understand because we don't have a lot of, studies.
No estamos
We don't
acostumbrados
speak the
a pedir
language,
dinero,
so we are not used to ask for
deudas,
money.
sino
We are
trabajar
not
y echar.
used to have debts. We
En la
are
tortilla
used
semilla
to
hemos
work
aprendido
and receive a check at the end of the week.
demasiado
So
desde
during this
solucionar
time, we have been able to learn so much about solving conflicts, financing, timeline, and CFNI has been very patient in regards to loans because they were able to explain and to be patient and be very kind to all of us, and we are very grateful for that. Ellie. Yes, my name is Elizabeth. Good afternoon. I am from Mexico. I am from Zacatelco, Cascala. I am also an
bueno, pues les voy a
immigrant.
comentar un poquito del proyecto de la tortillería Semilla.
And I would like to tell you a little bit about Tortillería Semilla. We are located in New Haven, Connecticut. And as Annabelle said, we have a community called Semilla Collective, and they are supporting us to have our own businesses, which is the dream of us. We are 3 members, and we are part of this project. And the progress is because there are not tortillerias in New Haven, not even in Connecticut. And they don't have, the tradition that we bring. We found a vendor that brings corn from Mexico. we cook everything related to the tortilla. We cook the corn with water. We have 3 elements: water, corn, and there is another element that is very important, and is love to what we do. And that is how we cook these tortillas. And you know, the process, we make the mass, and we have volcanic
Y esto es
stones, and we have the raw material to do tortillas,
Esta es una
tamales, and
tradición.
this is part of our heritage.
Nuestro
This is a
tatarabuelo.
tradition from our
Queremos perderla.
grandfathers, and we don't want to lose this tradition. What we want is to
Nuestros hijos, nietos, a
be
nuestros
able
futuros
to pass on this tradition to our kids, to our
y todos ellos,
grandsons,
ellos también lo
to
traten.
our future generations, so they will try not only to cook this kind of tortillas, but to keep the tradition. This is a dignified job, and this is a huge opportunity for the 3 of us to have our own business here in New Haven, here in the United States, being immigrants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Fems, want to invite you to come off mute and to tell us a little bit about yourself. Why'd you get started, and what's it like looking for funding for your co-op?
Les femmes.
Maître, femmes unis, mais faire vivre biso ambiance il y a réunion de les éclatés. Pose le bandambo ndambo. Mais tout se présenter. Faire vivre biso ambiance à réunion oyo. Biso toza libanda c'est comme si. Mais tu quand même parole tozo loba. Biso toza femmes unis. Toza communauté congolaise et angolaise. Congolaise toza à tous les deux, Congo Brazzaville, Congo Kinshasa et puis Angola. Nous to formé groupe oyo ba femmes unis.
Parents va interpréter. So our name is the Femmes Unies, and most of us are from Democratic Republic of the Congo and Angola.
Donc, toza ki idée à former groupe oya Femmes Unies. Donc, totala ki communauté na biso oya biso bato mwindo ya centre kuna donc Congo.
Sorry, but he's not doing simultaneous interpretation.
Tozala ki mwa mukie kosokipe na makambo mosusu oyo ezalaki mwa ya bafertilité. Nde tozwa ki likanisi ya kosala groupe oyo mpona conscientiser le femme que nous sommes basi oyo tozali entre biso nyonso congolaise ya dengambo na Angola mpona se conscientiser ndenge nini esengeli na biso totambola na mboka oyo toye ya sika oyo toza bapaya.
We cannot hear the interpretation.
Can you hear me? So the idea maybe now yeah.
He's not doing simultaneous. He's here.
Creating a business came when, as immigrants, we did realize that many people, especially women from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, from Congo Brazzaville and Angola, in the United States, they are not thriving in their life. So instead of to be focused on things that can help them to thrive and to prosper, they are not working enough. They are not talking about good things that can help them to top in their life. So this is the reason why when we met, we discussed it between us, what can we do to raise awareness among immigrant communities to see how they can improve their life and to contribute to the economy of the United States.
Tozaki likanisi ya kosala business à partir ya komona ndenge nini ba communauté mosusu eza ko évoluer. Biso tozalaki na communauté na biso tozalaki na eloko ya makasi te lokola ba communauté mosusu lokola ba Soudanais, ba Rwandais, etc. Tozalaki na yango te, tozalaki likanisi ya kosala business. Yango to se formaki en groupe oyo tozali mpona kosala business. Totalaki tobandaki komonke esika tokokuta oyo biso communauté wana tolingaka kosala lokola suki, lokola manzaka, lokola boye. Yango tozwaki likanisi ya kosala oyo tosali entre biso nde na koluka po tozala vraiment tomisunga biso moko tozala indépendant tomisunga biso moko nde tozwaki likanisi ya kosala yango po vraiment tomisunga biso moko.
So what we did realize, compared to people from other countries like Sudan and Rwanda, we saw a lot of people from their communities, they were thriving in what they were doing, but most of the people from our community were not thriving. And we talked ourselves, we said, what can we do to improve the life of our community members and to become independent? And then we saw that most of African people from our countries like to take care of their hair. They like their hair to always look fascinating. So that's why we decide to create a business which will be in this field.
Tozalaki na mwa ba possibilité na biso moko ya ndambo ndambo tobandaki nango eloko na biso comme business na biso nde tolukaki lisungi ya CFN ya coopérative po eya kosunga biso po tokende malamu liboso nde yango tose retrouver na kati ya coopérative lelo elongo na bino.
So although we had good ideas, the project to open a business in this field, but we didn't have enough money and skills to realize our projects. So that is why we decided to apply for funding to CFNE to see if they can help us with the knowledge, skills, and money to be able to materialize our projects, to create a business.
Gotcha. And what was that process of finding that money that you didn't have and those skills that you didn't have at that time? What was that process of trying to find the money and skills to get your project off the ground?
Processus a examen expliquer ne bobandaki po bozwa mbongo pe bozwa mwa mayele ba formation.
We cannot hear you. Yes, nous avons tozaki na ça le processus ezali que to contacter qui héritier au hasard business consultant na biso c'est yé muto introduire qui biso Chris et c'était facile avec lui parce que yé azaki koloba ba langue mibale français na anglais alors c'est par là nde to end up na bino na bango.
So the first step was we did contact Héritier Nosso, who is the business consultant, and because he speaks many languages, he was able to connect us with the cooperative funds of Northeast. Continue.
Yes, dans le sens continuer le processus. Tout ça toujours dans le processus. Nandé toujours continuer na Johan jusque là.
This is the interpreter. He was asking. Would like me to talk more about how the process was to get funding and the skills?
Yes.
Oui.
Processus qui facile na biso. Pourquoi? Parce que Chris azaki lisungi makasi po na biso. Chris atoko na processus wana malamu. To procédaki na ba réunion à chaque fois, à chaque étape, to bazaki assister na Chris. Moment mo tozaki pe assister na Johan, moment mo tozaki pe assister na Caroline, po na otalisa biso ndenge sengi to tambola elongo na bango, na ndenge bango batambola ba principe na bango na biso ba o toza to pour adhérer na coopérative. Donc, il y a tout ça qui processus na biso ça sama ki lolenge wana. Et sama ki na ndenge esengela ki elongo na bango. Papa ite baksa mususu yo mokoko.
So the process with CFNE was easy because we had Chris and Johan who helped us. Chris speaks both French and English, and Johan, even before to get funding, they started by training us to inform us what is their organizations, what is the process to get funding, what are the expectations, and what do we need to do in order to thrive in our cooperation between Les Femmes Unies and the cooperative. So Chris and Johan were very helpful with the trainings that they did provide to us. So before to receive the money, we started with the training from both of them.
Gotcha. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for the introduction. We're gonna go to the loan officers to see if some of what we heard from you guys, you know, preserving tradition, maintaining dignity, the difficulty with paperwork. Want to hear if these are some of the issues they're seeing and how are they responding. So let's spotlight the loan officers and let's take that conversation to their side.
Yes,
so maybe you guys caught most of that, but a lot of things stood out to me, which from the difficulty with paperwork, whether because I don't feel I'm educated, or I have a language barrier, or I don't have the relationships, or maybe I'm lucky enough to have a relationship. You know, so much going on, you know, maybe not even getting to the issues of credit and how do I get a loan? How do I qualify? What resonates with you guys? And what have you noticed about co-ops trying to get funding in the Northeast? Start off with you, Joe. What do you think?
One thing I heard in the stories is communities making a big decision that they need to thrive. Their community needs to thrive, or seeing a business opportunity that New Haven doesn't have, or tortilleria, and there's a once in a lifetime opportunity. These are big changes that are exciting, but you get good at things if you do them again and again and practice them. And once in a lifetime opportunities, you don't do again and again. You do them once. And so it's normal to be inexperienced at asking for money, at going through this process. It's normal for the people who come to CFNE to never have asked for money before, and to be doing it for the first time, and to feel like they need support and they need patience. And in order for us to support people to do once in a lifetime things, we need to support them to be comfortable doing something like asking for money that they've never done before.
Gotcha. And I think for you, Joe, quick follow-up. You're in New York. That's a new territory for us. You know, we're newer there. What's your experience with folks in New York as well, looking for funding and having that, you know, barrier of not knowing how or not knowing the organization in that area?
This may be true for all the loan officers, but sometimes people come with an idea, and we ask some questions. Tell us more about your idea. And then it takes them a while to get back to us. There's a pause. There's a slowdown because it takes time to build out a business idea, or to develop a concept, or to build a team. So my experience is that the relationships are slow and long in New York as people find their way towards the readiness to launch their idea.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. I like that. Once in a lifetime opportunities are not well practiced. It's true. It's true, Joe. For Vikas, I'd like to jump to you. What resonated with you among some of the thoughts from our clients, and what have you noticed?
Yeah, we serve a very broad range of cooperatives at CFNE. Some are big businesses that have been operating for a long time, for decades, and have many experienced cooperators. And others are launch loans or new businesses that are forming. We've been working more with newer different models and more and people that are newer to cooperatives in general. But many of our borrowers are from businesses that have existed for a long time. Another big thing that we see is people doing business conversions. So a business that has existed for many years and the owner is retiring or wants to sell the business to their employees. And we will work with the group of employees to purchase the business. We will help finance that. Often there's many parts to those sort of deals. That's one thing that I see a lot of in Vermont in particular. Less so in New Hampshire, but there too potentially. We also work a lot with food cooperatives, so large stores that sell food in their community and are owned by their community. Those food cooperatives have their own world sometimes. They have their own system of running and formation and people that work just with food cooperatives on their business to help it grow and help establish new ones. And so we really have a wide variety of people's experience as well as business types and sizes. So as a loan officer, it can be tricky because we're working with people in so many different places. But as a borrower, hopefully we do our best in every case to sort of identify what we can help you with, how we can understand where you're coming from, how we can understand your business and provide the best services and financing that will support your long-term success and growth.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Yeah, Vikas is in Vermont and in New Hampshire. Live free or die. That's the motto. And I imagine those are different experiences for you. Vermont, pretty developed. New Hampshire, maybe in a different way. It's got some different things going on. How is it to work in two different territories before we go on to Rebecca?
Sure, it's very different. Every place has its own culture. Vermont is freedom and unity. That's the motto. New Hampshire is live free or die. They both have freedom in the motto. But many folks look to cooperatives as a way of strengthening community ownership of businesses. We see so many businesses in every place that are owned by people that don't live there, that don't that take the money spent at those businesses elsewhere or to other investors. And cooperatives are one really strong way of keeping that money local and in the community that lives in a place. So that's one commonality everywhere.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Rebecca, what resonates? What have you noticed in your work in that area?
Sure. So as I think you could hear in both the groups that we're speaking, there's a lot of learning that's happening on both sides for CFNE and for the applicants coming to us. Whenever we're working with a business that's converting to a co-op, or whenever we're working with a business that's new and it's just finding its feet, there's a lot of learning that they're in the middle of. And oftentimes they're an expert in something like making tortillas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's an expert in financial projections or cooperative governance or all these different pieces that start to be really important when they're thinking about creating a co-op. And so CFNE really tries to take the time to learn and understand that specific business. It might be coming to us a sector that we've never even, learned anything about before. And we try to school ourselves up so we can really understand, hear from the worker owners, what their business is all about, how their operations go, try to understand what they see as important. And then also we can offer referrals often to co-op specific accountants and folks who provide training on co-op specific governance and different kinds of specialists, attorneys who specialize in cooperatives. So we help each other to learn all the things we need to get to a place where we can lend. And sometimes that's a lot of learning that has to take place. And so it's okay if the relationship moves forward kind of at the pace of that learning.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's really important to note, because it's not just the client who's learning about accessing financing and all of the technical nuances of that process, but CFNE is learning too. And we've had, as I said before, almost 50 years. I know you haven't been there for all of those, Rebecca, but could you talk a little bit about how our lending practice has evolved, what we're learning, what you've seen us learn, and some of the experiences working with co-ops that really stuck out to you?
I've been here almost 50 years, Johan.
Yeah, so I thought so, yeah.
I think to its credit, one of the things that CFNE keeps doing over and over again is looking around and saying, who's not at this table? Who's not sitting here at this table? Who's being left out of this? And then trying to figure out, all right, if we offered more creative products, if we tried to tailor our services to better meet people's needs, if we did outreach in this community, if we supported the growth of co-op developers in that community, what would it take to be able to lend to everybody? And obviously we do an imperfect job of that, but have been working, especially over the last few years, to try to develop products that are a little bit more creative and do a better job of reaching more people.
Gotcha. Thinking about that innovative product, that new product, one of the products that we want to talk about today is the launch loan. And Rebecca, you've had an experience with that, with Tatia Riasomia. What was that experience like for you? What are the needs that are coming into focus when you're thinking about a product like the launch loan, which did engage communities to learn what are your needs? What are emerging communities who've historically lacked access to friends and family funding? What are their needs and how can we respond to that? What have you noticed? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the launch loan is a newer product of CFNE's, and it's specifically for worker-owned cooperatives that are startups. And it's usually accessed either initially through or in conjunction with our learning team. So CFNE has our lending team, which is Joe Bacas and two more, and then our learning team, which is Johan and Carolyn and Maggie. And the learning team is like the lending team, getting phone calls, hearing from new people. And as people come towards the learning team, they're starting to work with them to look at their business plan, think about their financial projections, sort of figure out what would it take to get these folks loan ready. And so with the launch loan, we're working really closely with the learning team to catch groups that could benefit from capital, but that are really just at that process of becoming loan ready, and pre-revenue haven't actually taken flight as a business yet.
Yep. So tell me a little bit more about your experience working with, you know, the groups that you've worked with, one of which is on the call. What was that like? And what was it like to be a part of an innovative process where we're developing this pre-development financing service that we call the launch loan?
Well, I was just floored at the work that's happening in New Haven. The connection that the folks starting the business had, the roots they had in the community, the connection with this startup co-op to all this activism that's happening in that place was really exciting to see. And then people bringing these life skills that they had, this, you know, interest in food, the ability to make tortillas, to think about what the community need is, and bringing that to a place where they actually were conceiving how to launch a business around it, and what would it take to put all those pieces in place. Where would they make the tortillas? How would they market them? All those pieces. So I was a little bit less involved in some ways because the learning team was so involved. And Carolyn was working the most closely with Tortilla Semilla. And so we did most of our calls and meetings jointly, where it would be Carolyn and me coming together with Tortilla Semilla worker owners and all discussing what the next step was going to be. And there was a bunch of trust building that kind of was happening, where they were getting a chance to ask a bunch of questions, and we were getting a chance to respond to their questions, and they were getting a chance to be like, oh wow, you guys really aren't a typical bank kind of an experience. And we were like, yeah, that's right, this is a pretty unusual loan fund, and we really are excited about helping co-ops. And actually the whole point of this loan product and all of our other loan products is to help co-ops succeed. Like, that's what our organization's mission is. So that was really fun to see that relationship build and see my confidence grow in their ability to be successful in business, and see their confidence grow that CFNE really was like wanting to be there to help, and not do something extractive, didn't have all the kind of conventional lending goals.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. Launch loan is not our typical product, not your typical product. You know, it's a service. It is an experience over time, and we're learning each other and learning the process. So appreciate that, Rebecca. Joe, want to get your take on another issue that's come to the forefront. You know, the need for possibly high growth co-ops to access funding in an early stage. We've seen this in maybe a few cases, but really want to hear about your experience working with clients who needed that type of support. A little distinct from the pre-development revenue service for communities that don't have access to that friends and family funding. This is more for high growth co-ops. Tell us about that.
So the example that I know the best is this cooperative in New York City. It's called the Drivers Cooperative. And their goal is to compete with Uber, which is the big ride-sharing platform. Last I heard, they had 9,000 members who were drivers. So this is a big cooperative, but they need to be much bigger if they want to compete with Uber. And it's going to take a long time for them to grow. So if they were trying to pay back traditional debt, they wouldn't have the cash flow early on. They need to pay back the debt later on. So what they said was, hey world, who wants to own a piece of the Drivers Cooperative? And they offered equity, which is like a ownership share in the Drivers Cooperative for people who wanted to put money in. Now, CFNE has never really wanted to own any of the cooperatives. That's not what we're interested in. But we were able to make a loan to them that looked like equity. It was very patient. There's no schedule for it to be repaid back until they grow to a certain level. They have to get big enough. And so it looks like equity in some ways. And it was a different loan. Like I said, very big. It's a computer platform. They don't have a store or equipment. And most of their drivers didn't bring a lot of assets to the cooperative. I think they operate in 9 languages, last I heard, in the cooperative. So there are people from all over the world working together. So it was exciting, but also a learning process for us. How do we lend to this very different kind of cooperative? It's like I said, it's not a store. It's not going to start making money right away. So we made an equity-like contribution. Many others did as well. We made a contribution of a couple of $100,000, but they actually raised several $1 million on the internet with saying, "Hey, world, come and join us. Be a part of this good work. Let's create a company that's better than Uber for the drivers," because Uber is known for not treating drivers very well. They're still growing, and we're still along for the journey to see how they do.
Excellent. So those are 2 very different startup scenarios, you know. One is a group of, in Rebecca's case, of women who wanted to honor their traditions, honor their dignity, find meaningful work that could support them, and they just needed the access to that early or even pre-development funding. Whereas in this case, we're looking at a high growth startup who just needed an early round of funding, and we were able to support them. So I think that's, pretty interesting to think of the different scales of getting started. Vikas, love to hear about you, because you had experiences on the other end. They're at the peak of a business where they're trying to do things differently and evolve even. So tell me a little bit about your experiences with that.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about cooperative conversions, which we do. We work with many groups and have worked with many businesses over the years who are becoming cooperatives that already have a strong track record as an existing business. Most times it's a small business. There's no typical case. Every case is different, but often 5 to maybe 20 employees. Oftentimes a single owner of a business who has been running that business for many years, often decades, and is looking to retire. If you know people that own a small business whose children maybe are not interested in operating that business, but they have good employees that have been there for a long time and know the business well, that's a great candidate for a co-op. We work with many partner organizations, including people like CDI, the Cooperative Development Institute. In Vermont, we have an employee ownership center, as do some other states. Massachusetts, I believe, has some specific organizations that I don't know. But we work with partners who go to these businesses and help the employees understand and take over the operation of the business and purchase it from the selling owner. This has evolved to a big part of our work. We can now finance, our limit is about $2 million, but for larger businesses, we'll work with other lenders, and we can go bigger than that. And we work with the cooperative, the employees that are purchasing the business, to give them a loan to take over and run the place. And it's been very exciting. We see a lot of these, and it's a really exciting, effective way of maintaining a business in a community where someone may have otherwise shut it down or sold it to an outside investor that is not as invested or as involved in their own community. It can be very transformative to employee owners who realize how much money this business is making and get to see more of that stay with them instead of just taking a salary.
Gotcha. So yeah, this is, you know, 3 different facets of some of our emerging solutions. You know, folks before they get started, folks at the start of their journeys, in this case, a high growth co-op, and even a business at the peak of this journey looking for succession. So these are not our typical products, and we're developing them to meet these emerging needs. But what about our typical one? I think a lot of folks are thinking, you know, what if I just want a loan? In fact, I think someone asked that question, right? I think it was Rebecca. How do I get a loan from CFNE, right? And let's maybe help folks navigate that process, okay? So step 1, I think it's very important for folks to know we have a website. On that website, you can learn about borrower eligibility. You can see other borrowers, and there's even a number for you to call to contact us. Love to add some more detail to that. Vikas, what do you think about the first step in getting a loan from CFNE?
There's a lot of information on our website. It includes our loan application so you can know what type of things we may ask for, but more importantly, it includes our contact information. Find the person that you need to talk to and come and talk to us. We'll work with you. It also includes lots of helpful tools and resources from our learning team. On our learning team pages, you can book time with some of our business coaches. You can book time with Johan or Carolyn or Maggie. And you can also read about other co-ops, and you can see some helpful learning tools on our website. But you can also just use the website to find the phone number or an email and contact us, and we'll work with you.
Gotcha. And that leads to step 2, contacting your loan officer. Quite often, you may hear them at a conference, or you run into them at a networking event, or maybe in a workshop like this. But in any case, that is the first step in really getting to the heart of this process. Contact your loan officer. So love to invite Rebecca to tell a little bit more about that piece. How do folks contact you, and what's your preference? Tell us a little bit more about that step.
Sure. So you can get in touch with us by email or phone. And either way, we then figure out a time we can talk, and it becomes a conversation. You tell us about your project. You explain what's happening in your business, what your financing needs are. And we work to figure out what makes sense for a loan request. And we tailor the supporting documents we need specifically to your situation. So if you are a housing co-op that's coming to us, you're going to need a very different set of materials than if you're a food co-op that's expanding. So the food co-op that's expanding might need to have a market study to show us why it's going to make sense for them to expand into the new place. The housing co-op might need to have a whole plan for a vacancy reserve and a capital improvement schedule to show how they're going to fix things over time. So we work with you to figure out exactly what kind of information we'll need to see to be able to see if a loan makes sense. But it also can be helpful because it can point out, oh, we don't see a resident selection plan for your housing yet. and the group might say, oh yeah, right, we're gonna work on getting that. So usually the things that we're asking for are not just for our benefit, but are really for the co-op's benefit and help to steer the group away from the rocks.
I think that's an important point, 2 and 3. You begin that relationship with your local loan officer, and that allows actual development of a unique application for that person. I know we have an application online that people can access. Do they ever fill that out and just show up to you, and how does that work out?
I haven't had anybody do that. It's usually best to just talk with us first. It makes it a much more straightforward process if we can talk first and have everybody get on the same page. So yeah, that's what we recommend.
Gotcha.
The sooner you call us or email us, the sooner we can learn about what your project is. If you're not ready to apply for a loan, we can tell you what you need to do to get ready to apply for a loan. We can work with you to help figure out what your next step is. So it's never too early, and it's always better to talk to us earlier.
Sometimes when there's a co-op conversion, folks get a little shy about coming to us before everybody's been told and everybody's on board. But we just encourage folks, come as soon as you think you might have financing. We can start talking right away.
Excellent. And is there an appropriate time for folks to bring it to you? I know we have a process. I want to invite you to talk a little bit more about that in terms of when you submit applications that are prepared. Yep, Rebecca, yep. Or anyone else?
Sure. In terms of the life cycle of the project, like really at the point where you think, all right, at some point we're going to need to have financing to get this off the ground. Feel free to start talking with us at that point. And we can say, this looks exciting. Come back to us when you have a business plan and some financial projections, or here are 6 resources we want to refer you to, or here's our lending team. We think would be great for you to talk with them, or let's see if we can get you connected with SBDC folks. So there's never a bad point to come talk with us. If there are a lot of pieces missing from the puzzle, we'll just have more referrals to give you.
Gotcha. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3. Visit our website, get that number. If you don't have their business card, you'll get that information from that number on the website. You contact your local loan officer, and then that relationship allows you to prepare and submit an application that makes sense. Different co-ops have different needs. Never too early. Sounds good. Now, what's this due diligence process, Joe? Can you talk a little bit about that? What is that about?
Sure. So all lending and all borrowing is about predicting the future. And the future is unknown. We do our best to guess at what's going to happen. The due diligence is a process where myself or Rebecca or Vikas or other loan officers will try to understand the vision of the future that the cooperative has. Like, we will produce tortillas. This many people will buy tortillas, some prediction of the future. And we'll kind of test it a little bit and say, what evidence do we have that this will happen? We'll ask a lot of questions in that process to say, well, what if you're only half right? What will you do then? What if something unusual comes up? What if your co-founder quits? What will you do then? These kind of questions to understand the future. And the goal for us as loan officers is to write the story, which leads to our step number 5. We're not the deciders. We don't decide whether a loan is made or not. We write the story, and then we bring it to a committee, and the committee decides. And the committee is made up of people from cooperatives around the region, from economic development agencies around the region, and they are the ones that will read the story and ask us questions. Say, why do you think that people will need hair care? Why do you think they will need, this service in the future? And we want to be able to answer all those questions. So we create a package, we bring it to the committee, and then the committee says yes or no. And we're looking for them to say yes. So we're trying to write it in a way that we feel they're likely to say yes to it.
Gotcha. And what would make the committee say no? I mean, I know you don't enjoy asking those questions, even when I see that smile.
Yeah.
But what do you think would stop an application from moving? Or why would you not recommend one for approval? Yep.
I think the thing that seems to be the largest obstacle is trust, I think. So if it seems like if we say, oh, you think you're going to grow 10 times as large, that seems a little bit like a very fast growth. And if the applicant is humble and says, I want to grow 10 times as large, but I know that may or may not happen. Here's plan B. Then I think it's more likely that we can get an approval. If the applicant says no, I know all the answers, I'm sure of it, I'm unwilling to hear your feedback, I'm sometimes that means that there's a little bit of a lack of trust between us and them, where we say we want to know a little bit more, and they say you don't need to know anymore. I have all the answers. They've already been given to you. So I think it's important for the applicants to recognize when they're unknowns and say, like, it's the future is not written, and things might happen, and let's have a partnership going forward to resolve them.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And then you get to closing. What's going on with closing? Once they're approved, what happens next? Still you, Joe.
Oh, is that to me? I thought it was coming around.
Well, you know what? Let's go over to Vikas. We're approved. We're closing. Tell me about closing and ongoing support.
Yeah, closing can be a little bit tricky. What that means is you've applied for a loan and we've told you, yes, we will give you money. And now we need to figure out how and when that happens. This is when lawyers get involved. This is when we write up all the exact contract. And what we'll do is we'll work with you to make sure you understand what the loan is and what you're signing and what you're agreeing to pay. And we want to make sure that we understand what you plan to do, you understand what we plan to do, and work towards a date where we all sign the paperwork, and then we can send your money. And it can take some time. It's not always very fast. Sometimes it can take months. It takes longer if you're buying real estate. If you're buying a building or something like that, then lawyers often take more time. It can take less time if it's a smaller loan, or if it's something that's simpler in some other way. But the whole time we will make sure to communicate with you. We will try to tell you what's happening, and we may ask for more paperwork or specific things that we'll need to sign the loan.
Gotcha. And a little bit about ongoing support, right? We closed. What's this ongoing support about? Vikas.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure who you were going to call. One thing I like to tell people, when you get a loan from CFNE, one of the benefits is you get to see me once a year. And really what that means is, as your loan officer, I will come and visit your business at least once a year. We'll sit down and talk about how things are going. If there's something that I can help with, I'm happy to help, or to send an introduction to other people, or to recommend training, if there's a way that we can help even outside of just approving money or changing the loan structure, I want to know about it. We also will always respond if you call or email us and you have any questions. And really, the reason we do this is we want to know how your business is doing. We want to know how you're doing. We want to know what you're having problems with, what's going well, what's going poorly. And then we can help you anticipate things that might happen in the future. And we can help shape we can change the way that we interact, and we can hopefully help you have a more successful business. Sometimes that can include changing the structure of a loan, or knowing ahead of time when your loan is coming due. We can anticipate any changes, or when we're coming to a renewal, we can work with you ahead of time to renew your loan so you don't have to pay off a big balloon payment or something like that. So we like to be proactive. We like to know ahead of time what's happening so we can anticipate future issues.
Gotcha. So we got a pretty straightforward process here. We're providing contact information and borrower information on the website. You can call that number to figure out who your local loan officer is. That relationship helps you to prepare and submit an application that might be unique, even though there's a form. And then we engage in the due diligence process, and Joe gets to ask the questions. And then we get to approval, whether it's internal or by committee, which allows us to close on the loan and provide ongoing support. So I hope this is helpful for folks in the audience. If you got questions, feel free to drop it in the chat or wait a few minutes and then we'll open it up. So this is how do I get a loan from CFNE, at least some of our more traditional approaches to providing that. But we also have some of the unique, not our typical products that we mentioned earlier in this conversation, like the launch loan. And in this case, it's a little atypical. In this case, it's a pre-development. So before you even really get started, service, right? It's not just a deposit of money. It is a 3-year process in some cases, or even shorter than that, depending on how the co-op performs. But we couple this with technical assistance with the learning team, and we're focused on helping you to reach your self-determined milestones and goals. So a little different. Want to invite Rebecca to add any more context to this. You added quite a bit before as well.
Yeah, so for our launch loan, there are often periods of time with no interest payments. It's one of the ways that we've tried to be more flexible in creating this product. It's a smaller size loan, but the interest rate is usually lower than our regular loans, and there are sometimes these periods of no interest and no principal payments. And during those times, we replace payments with monthly meetings. So the learning team talks with the worker-owned cooperative monthly, and they, talk about the progress that's being made, look at how the projections are getting updated, and just talk through any issues together, and we can keep referring to services that might help. So it's multi-year. Usually as time goes on, payment starts being made on interest, and then eventually once the co-op is revenue generating, they might be able to refinance for a regular loan with us, which is the ideal. It's what we hope will happen.
Sure. And one of my favorite things about this loan is that it's trying to address that gap of, as we said before, family and friends funding. A lot of the times when a business is trying to get started, whether it's a co-op or otherwise, the first people you ask for money is your friends and family. And in some communities, specifically communities that have been historically disinvested, specifically if it's been racially motivated or otherwise, they don't have that. And so I love that we get to heal that divide and try to engage that aspect of things. I love that about the launch loan. Next, we have the equity-like financing or the revenue-based financing. I want to invite Joe to talk a little bit about that. But, you know, the basics of this one is that patient capital for startups, high growth. What else do you think people ought to know and, you know, relate to your experience?
Yeah, I think it's unusual, you know, this is an emerging solution. It's new for us. I think the thing that we would want to know was why do we have to be so patient? You know, we in the drivers cooperative, they will only succeed if they start paying back when they get large. You know, if they start paying back earlier, it will drag on them. They won't succeed. And so we'll want to know something like that. Like, why do you need us to wait? What happens if we wait? And if it's a situation where it's being paid back through revenue, like how much money do you need to be making before you can start to pay us back? Those kind of predictions of the future become much more important to us to understand why, you know, if you want us to wait 10 years, for example, why 10 years? What happens in 10 years that rather than waiting for 1 year or something like that? So we'll want to hear more about the future.
Gotcha. And, you know, I think this product is interesting for that growth, you know, which is the basis of that patience, you know, just anticipating high growth, because the co-op form is becoming more and more adopted, but it has such a high potential for impact. And I love that we can target organizations or businesses that are co-op interested and minded, who want to kind of spread that message about what's possible with a co-op, and recognizing that the impact in the larger economy of people seeing something like the drivers co-op. So I love that we can get involved in that and focus on the growth. For the third, we've got the co-op conversion, which is fairly similar to previous, but would allow Vikas to talk a little bit more about it. Yep.
Yeah, I spoke a little bit about this earlier, but conversions can be really powerful. In addition to spreading the money, the revenue, the money that this business has been making amongst the employees instead of just to one owner, co-ops also involve every co-op member in decisions about how to run the business. We often see after a conversion, people make changes to their business to make the working environment better, to changes their relationship with each other as colleagues. There's not one boss telling everyone what to do. It's everybody problem solving together, and trying to build a sustainable environment, a sustainable business, both in terms of making money, but also being a place where they want to be long term. In addition to that, we see, you know, these groups of people and these businesses staying in places and building. Oftentimes they grow after a conversion, and bring new people in. So we love to see more and more co-ops. As we're in a time where there are many older business owners, you know, many people are retiring, older baby boomers are retiring. And at this particular time, we see a lot of interest in conversions because many of those people don't have a specific person in mind to buy their business or take it over. And when you see them realize, oh, these people that have been working for me actually have skills that they're not using every day that they can use in this business, it can be a really powerful motivating force.
Yeah, I love the potential for evolution, you know, co-evolution. I think it's great for the workers, for the previous owners to become something different. I think that's one of the most powerful potentials that we're going to see in the near future. This is, as I've said, emerging solutions. These are issues that we've recognized, that the lack of friends and family funding in some communities, the need for high growth co-ops to access early stage funding, and the need for groups to evolve, whether they're a business looking to convert or they're a group of entrepreneurs who are looking to create a more democratic workplace. So love this. I want to thank you guys for your time. And I want to give anyone who has a question or who would like to follow up on anything that's been said an opportunity to ask their question. So I'm going to stop sharing shortly and see if there's an opportunity to engage in questions. Yeah, about 5 minutes. Because I asked, why is it so dark? It's nighttime. It's nighttime. And this also extends to our friends at Soteria Semilla and the FEMS Uni. If you guys have questions or folks have questions for you guys, I want to invite them to do so in the last 2 or 3 minutes. Otherwise, I know we can get ready for dinner. Got kids in the kitchen waiting. Oh, okay, good.
Bueno, más que pregunta es como
It's not a
agradecimiento.
question,
Porque
it's just to be
yo-
grateful, you know. Thanks to
Ya lo
Joy,
hemos visto en
Rebecca,
tortillerías.
Vikas, and
Entonces,
John. This is something that we already experienced in Tortilla Semilla. Each concept and concepts to me was really hard to understand. Loans, financing, technical things, and that's what I talk with my coworkers. Now it's easier to understand because you were able to explain it to us. Now we are able to answer because we saw so many different concepts. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you because we had so many questions. I remember that we were always asking for questions, and we wanted to say thank you to Rebecca, Caroline, C, and FE, I'm sorry, CFNE. Thank you so much for working with other co-ops and to be able to talk without being afraid of making mistakes. And I took so many notes today just to make sure that I keep learning. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. To the Dream Chasers. Appreciate you, Annabelle.
So much. You guys are wonderful to work with.
Gotcha. All right. So I want to, give another few seconds for anyone else who would like to make a comment. If the FEMS, if you guys have anything to share. Otherwise, it's a great time to go and enjoy your families.
Thank you, Johan. Thanks for pulling this together.
No problem. Thank you for being available.
And thank you, all the folks that joined as well.
And the interpreters, thank you so much, interpreters. This is a big deal. We've never had 3 languages all at once on one of our workshops before, so this was historic as well.
It is. All right.
You're very welcome.
So with that, if you have any follow-up questions after the call for our loan officers, we've got Rebecca, Vikas, and Joe's information on the screen. Feel free to reach out to them. And we've also got mine if you have a question for the learning team or in general. So I want to thank everyone for the time. We'll see you at next month's webinar. This is October 18th, same time. Talk soon. Good night.